Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
If you're a science fiction fan, you're probably familiar with this iconic opening narration from the original Star Trek series, which aired in the 1960s. This show spawned multiple critically acclaimed spin-offs and movies, who are known for their great special effects, beautiful lens flares, and great acting.
I'm Captain Kirk!
All joking aside, this franchise always finds a way to reinvent itself for modern audiences, but there's one that has always stood out to me, and strangely, it's the most underrated one: Star Trek Deep Space Nine. There's actually a lot of fans who don't want to give the show a chance, because it looks dark and grim and it doesn't carry the same messages as the originals did. And it doesn't. It often does the exact opposite of what those other shows did. But how does it find its own identity as Star Trek? Why do the fans who have seen it love it so much? What makes this show Star Trek? Well, to tell you that, I should probably give you a quick history lesson first. Chapter 1: The Death of Gene Roddenberry. Star Trek was made in the 1960s by Gene Roddenberry. The show takes place in 2266 and follows a crew that work on a starship called the Enterprise. They explored space and went on adventures with aliens and met new life and civilizations. They boldly went where no man had gone before. After 3 seasons, the show ended, and for about 20 years there were no other Star Trek TV shows. But then,
Has gone before.
a whole new show that kind of followed the exact same formula that the previous one did.
To make contact with other life forms, to establish peaceful relations but not to interfere.
Oh well. But then,
Roddenberry died Thursday at a Los Angeles hospital after suffering a massive heart attack.
and of course, everyone panicked. And television manager Brendan Tartikoff called Rick Berman and Michael Piller. Star Trek was often compared to the show called Wagon Train, an old western from the 1950s that followed a crew on a wagon train traveling from Missouri to California, meeting all kinds of people along the way. Wagon Train had a spin-off called The Rifleman, starring Chuck Connors as the skilled marksman and widower Lucas McCain. Set in the Wild West of the 1880s, each episode follows Lucas as he navigates the rough and tumble world of the New Mexico territory with his son Mark. Using his trusty Winchester rifle and his quick wits, Lucas stands up to various outlaws who threaten the safety of his family and the town of North Fork. Along the way, he also tries to teach Mark important life lessons and values, making The Rifleman not just an exciting action-packed show, but also a heartwarming family drama. Sound familiar? That's because they ripped the show off to make Deep Space Nine. Yep, I'm not even joking. Brendan told Rick Berman and Michael Piller, "If the next generation is the wagon train in space, this show needs to be the rifleman in space." And that's how the concept of our new main character was born. Commander Benjamin Sisko, who, like the rifleman, is a widowed father who comes across a bad Western-style town to set things straight while taking care of his son. And looking back, Deep Space Nine very much is a Western. You've even got a mayor, a bartender, a sheriff, a doctor, a normal working man, and even a Native American. Berman found the idea of 2 shows on a spaceship completely laughable, so he decided to make the show take place on a space station, which in retrospect was a genius choice, because this way, the show could figuratively dig its roots deeper in the world's lore and focus more on the political, religious, and personal character problems of the world that Gene Roddenberry had created. They could, in a way, explore more than the Next Generation crew ever could with their little adventures in space. Together with this came the choice for a serialized show instead of the previous episodic structure the shows held. This gave the characters room to grow instead of staying the same episode to episode. Let's get into Chapter 2, the themes. If we want to know what these great differences between the shows are, we first need to find the themes of the original Star Trek.
First Star Trek series, we treated such things as mixed races aboard the spaceship, and whether women could be in charge of anything and so on. And when we shocked the audience by saying yes to those questions. In the new series, with new characters and new attitudes, we have a chance to deal with still more important questions, and questions of the 80s and the 90s.
This is how Roddenberry wrote his message of inclusivity into our lives, with episodes like Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, The Measure of a Man, and The Outcast. All are episodes about progressive ideas for the time, like racism.
It can't be done.
Not in a day, and not in 10 times 10,000 years by your thinking. To you, we are a loathsome breed who will never be ready. Genocide for my people is the plan for your utopia.
Insane, filthy little plotter of ruin.
Transgenders.
I am tired of lies. I am female. I was born that way.
And what it means to be human.
Commander Data, what are you doing now? I'm taking part in a legal hearing to determine my rights and status. Am I a person or property?
And what's at stake?
My right to choose. Perhaps my very life.
The main theme, and the one to take away from all of it, is a hope for a better tomorrow. And talking about our problems we have today, out of context, without biases. Chapter 3. The Story. Star Trek Deep Space Nine takes place on a space station called Deep Space Nine. The show follows the lives of the station's crew and residents who come from different planets and species. The main character is Benjamin Sisko, a Starfleet commander who oversees the station and deals with various challenges and conflicts after the death of his wife.
You're far from the Federation fleet. Alone in this remote outpost with poor defense systems. Your Cardassian neighbors will be quick to respond to any problems you might have.
We'll try to keep the dog off your lawn.
Including the threat of a war with an alien empire called the Dominion. Throughout the series, the crew of Deep Space Nine must navigate these various conflicts and challenges while also dealing with personal struggles and relationships.
I know what's going on. You don't have to pretend with me.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're in love with her.
Who?
Kira.
That's ridiculous.
One of the key themes of Deep Space Nine is the tension between order and chaos, between the desire for stability and the need for change. Sisko is a representative of the Federation, an organization that prides itself on its commitment to democratic values and peaceful coexistence. But he quickly realizes that the reality of life on Deep Space Nine is far messier than the ideals the Federation would suggest.
You know, Captain, if I'd had just 2 more vials of white, you never would have had a chance.
Chief, get this. Take him back to base camp.
Along the way, the show also explores themes of morality, justice, war, religion, identity, love, and the human condition, as well as the relationships and interactions between different cultures and species. It does not shy away from depicting the consequences of war, both on the battlefield and on the home front.
When the war began, I wasn't happy or anything, but I was eager. I wanted to test myself. I wanted to prove I had what it took to be a soldier. And I saw a lot of combat. I saw a lot of people get hurt. I saw a lot of people die. But I didn't think anything was going to happen to me. And then suddenly, Dr. Bashir is telling me he has to cut my leg off. I couldn't believe it.
It also challenges the simplistic moral certainties of other science fiction shows, presenting characters who are flawed.
Mother, I know you're not like other females. You like to think about things. You have opinions.
Conflicted.
Do you really want to give up your life for the order of things?
It is not my life to give up, Captain. And it never was.
And sometimes even morally compromised.
I am an accessory to murder. But the most damning thing of all, I think I can live with it.
Chapter 4. The Differences. Now let's get into Deep Space Nine's themes and differences from normal Star Trek. The first and main difference can be seen in the show's intro. It's about a space station and not a spaceship, which allows more recurring characters, and now they don't go towards adventure but let adventure come to them. The show puts an emphasis on complex characters and character development, especially the morally ambiguous ones.
What I want to know is, out of all the stories you told me, which ones were true and which ones weren't?
My dear doctor, they're all true.
Even the lies?
Especially the lies.
It focuses way more on their diverse and nuanced set of protagonists, with all of them having personal motivations and conflicting loyalties. It works in real-world issues in thought-provoking ways, sometimes even poking fun at them.
Females are not allowed to earn profit.
Why not?
Because it's the law, and without law, society would descend into chaos.
If you ask me, this society could use a little chaos.
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Gee, I wish Father were alive. Then it'd be just like old times, sitting around a family table, eating tube grubs, discussing important issues of the day.
Like I said, it has a serialized story, and not an episodic structure. It also tends to be darker and more dramatic in contrast to the optimistic feel of previous Star Trek shows. Then there's the obvious changes, like the black commander character instead of the white captain. But at a fundamental level, they're even more different than that. Picard is idealistic, and he deals with his own trauma from time to time, I guess.
There are 4 nights!
But Commander Sisko is hardcore. He's one of the scariest leading characters ever. Here are 2 examples. At this point, Commander Sisko has already been promoted to captain.
Commander, I said launch torpedoes. Aye, sir.
Trilithium resin is dissipating throughout the biosphere. The Maquis are scrambling their transport ships. They're starting to evacuate.
Do you realize what you've done?
I've only just begun. I'm going to eliminate every Maquis colony in the DMZ.
You're talking about turning hundreds of thousands of people into homeless refugees.
That's right. When you attacked the Malinche, you proved one thing. That the Maquis have become an intolerable threat to the security of the Federation, and I am going to eliminate that threat.
But think about those people you saw in the caves. Huddled and starving, they didn't attack the Malinche.
You should have thought about that before you attacked a Federation starship. Helm, lay in a course for Tracken 2, Warp 6. Commander, prepare 2 more torpedoes.
Engine room, break.
Set course 050.
And there's this example. After Captain Sisko realizes that he can't beat the Dominion, he forges false evidence and uses it to convince a planet that was neutral to go to war and start fighting the Dominion.
If you can allow your anger to subside for a moment, you'll see that they did not die in vain. The Romulans will enter the war.
There's no guarantee of that!
Oh, but I think that there is.
You see, when the Tal Shiar finishes examining the wreckage of Renak's shuttle, they'll find the burnt remnants of a Cardassian optolithic data rod which somehow miraculously survived the explosion. After painstaking forensic examination, they'll discover that the rod contains a recording of a high-level Dominion meeting at which the invasion of Romulus was being planned.
And then they'll discover that it is a fraud!
Oh, I don't think they will. Because any imperfections in the forgery will appear to be a result of the explosion. So, with a seemingly legitimate rod in one hand and a dead senator in the other, I ask you, Captain, what conclusion would you draw?
That Vrenak obtained the rod on Sukata, and that the Dominion killed him to prevent him from returning to Romulus with it.
Precisely. And the more the Dominion protests its innocence, the more the Romulans will believe they're guilty, because it's exactly what the Romulans would have done in their place. That's why you came to me. Isn't it, Captain? Because you knew I could do those things that you weren't capable of doing. Well, it worked. And you'll get what you want. A war between the Romulans and the Dominion. And if your conscience is bothering you, you should soothe it with the knowledge that you may have just saved the entire Alpha Quadrant, and all it cost was the life of one Romulan senator, one criminal, and the self-respect of one Starfleet officer. I don't know about you, but I'd call that a bargain.
So yeah, man, that's fucked up. Chapter 5. So now I have to answer the question, I guess.
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
How does this show stay true to Star Trek by doing the exact opposite? And the answer is that it doesn't.
That's it? That's the last episode? That was just a bunch of cheap walk cycles! What a rip! SpongeBob betrayed us!
It's different, but not in the ways that matter. It doesn't do the opposite of the themes we already know. It expands those themes. These characters all have problems that are very similar to our own problems today. And it very much hits the notes that resonate with an audience. Problems like identity, love, sorrow, and of course war and religion. These are all very much present in our society today. But most importantly, the hope for a better tomorrow has not left the show. The problems are just a little darker. These characters are pushed to their moral limit because of their hope for a better tomorrow. It's kind of like propaganda against war in a way. So what I'm trying to say is, even though the shell may be dark and dramatic and dirty, the inside stayed the same. Just evolved a little more for modern times and modern audiences. And sadly, I couldn't even talk about the real reason that I love this show. The characters and the way that they grow. They really feel like a family you've gotten to know over the years. And with their little stupid problems and personal stories, you almost feel sorry seeing them go. But anyways, thanks for listening to me ramble about this dumb show that I really love. And conclusion? Yes. Star Trek Deep Space Nine is Star Trek, and it's definitely worth your time and the watch.